Chipotle for lunch. Carne asada bowl with extra guac. And corn salsa.
Yikes. You know, I give a company a compliment and then next week they just spit in my face or they just give me a slap in the face and just take 1,000 steps back after they took in 1 centimeter step forward. Episode 7 kind of felt like a big waste of time for me. And it's not to say that it's a filler, but there are a lot of padding moments where like 3 big things only happen. This is kind of an episode where it's like 1 or 2 big scenes. And it's not padding as bad as episodes 5 padding, where the padding in episode 7 does actually try to advance the plot, but it doesn't do enough justice for the episode because of where it's placed, because this is the second to last episode of the final season ever. So the plot of this episode really revolves around old father on both sides from Vault and the boys. Now with the boys side of things, Annie and MM get a special tip from Marie Monroe and Jordan Lee from the Gen V show. And I'm glad to see them, I'm glad they're back. But holy disrespect to these characters because they only share 2 minutes of screen time with everybody. And they don't even get to use their powers or anything. It's really a big waste of their time and talent. And here is revealed that the shrinking girl, I forget her name from Gen V, but the shrinking girl has been spying on old father for the past few weeks, and they found out that old father has been spending a lot of his time at Vault Studios, but nobody's sure why. And after getting this information from Marie, Annie just tells them to basically pack your things and go home, like you're no longer part of this fight or the team. And the 2 Gen V characters are confused because Annie dragged them into this in the first place. Because before they met Annie in Gen V Season 2, they were living their private, quiet lives, basically. And Annie's reasoning for this is pretty much that she wants to protect them and keep them safe, along with the rest of the cast of Gen V, because Homelander is now immortal with the V1 in his system. But in the same breath, Annie has the nerve to tell Marie in her face that even though she has a lot of power, it's no good because she can't control it. And if I was Marie in this scene, I would have bloodbended Annie back to season 1 because who are you talking to like that? Like literally, Marie is the reason that the world hasn't been already turned into chaos by Godolkin. She's the reason, you know, people aren't getting their bodies taken over before Homelander even came up with this whole God complex thing. And the fact that the Renji of the boys universe is talking to the Satoru Gojo of Gen V and telling them that they're not good enough is crazy to me because Annie herself never wins any fights. All she does is light up her eyes and the lights in the room flicker around her and she never manages to get a hit on anybody. Everybody always gets the upper advantage on her. And it's been like this from season 1. Marie and her group has done way more for the boys universe than Annie ever has in the past 5 seasons. So the fact that you're trying to talk down on this character is just crazy to me. And it's also funny because the Gen V group is more useful and more likely to be successful than the boys team is. Because Jordan by herself can solo the entire boys team. Even with the parasite inside Butcher, Jordan is killing him easily, no diff. Then we got Sam, super strength, jumps high and far, and super durability. Even Kimiko couldn't put a scratch on him. And then we got Polaris himself, the Magneto of the group, now that he's cured of his disease thanks to Marie. And speaking of Marie, yeah, she can cure lifelong diseases people has had, and she can even bring people back from the dead. So here, she possibly could have potentially taken the V1 out of Homelander's system. But in the end, this whole scene is just to show how that meeting went with the Gen V production team, and where they basically told them they're not getting a 3rd season. And having the Gen V characters show up this late into the season tells me that the season was meant to be more than 8 episodes, but they couldn't get more than 8 episodes for some reason. So this was the best possible way they could do it, is just completely disregard and disrespect those characters that are actually useful. So yeah, that really just rubbed me the wrong way right there. Meanwhile on the side, Butcher, Frenchie, and Kimiko come up with a plan to pump Kimiko full of uranium so that she can have that same nuclear blast power that gets rid of superpowers and V1 serum, similar to how Soulja Boy had. So this way they can have their own version of Soulja Boy because he's no longer around. Or that, you know, he's no longer on their side. And we also have Annie tell Butcher about the tip they received from Marie and Jordan, and Butcher comes up with the plan to basically infiltrate Vault Studios stealthily and interrogate O-Father to see what Homelander's next plans are. And here's where we get the writing in circles again, because we have Huey arguing against Butcher's plan because he just doesn't agree with it, because he's not feeling hopeful right now. Now at this point, Huey's just arguing with Butcher for the love of the game. He's been doing this all season and it's so annoying. And hot take, I don't think the boys team needs him anymore. He hasn't contributed anything but complaints. He hasn't done anything but pad the runtime or make the writers write in circles by complaining about everything Butcher is trying to do. And the fact that he's not coming up with his own alternative plans like he used to is just really annoying, and it's rubbing me the wrong way here. And you know the writing here is bad and repetitive because not only are the characters regressing and repeating actions or dialogue throughout the whole season, but it's also got me repeating the same critiques every video. I've been saying this since like 3 videos ago, that these guys need to stop arguing with Butcher and just kind of trust them unless they have their own alternate plans, which they don't. And during the infiltration of Vault Studios, the group is split into 2. We have Annie with MM and we have Huey with Butcher. And Huey and Butcher are immediately captured by this telepathic person. And this is the best display of this power we've seen, because usually in other pieces of fiction, they have it to where that person has to be right next to their target, or they can only read their immediate thought and the person will come up with a way to block it by thinking of something else. And in this case, once your brain is near his location, he knows where you are and he knows who you are no matter what you're thinking. So if you try to think of something else as your immediate thought, it's not going to work because he already knows it's you. And he uses his mind powers to knock both of them out, ultimately capturing them. And during this interrogation scene, it's really cool here because we see more powers from him. Not only can he read your mind into your deepest thoughts without you thinking about your deepest thoughts, but he can also shapeshift. So he uses this as an opportunity to shapeshift into Kessler, which is the guy that Butcher was hallucinating back in season 4 before he fully accepted the parasite. And he uses this as an opportunity to try to cause tension between Butcher and Huey by revealing that Butcher is the reason Kessler and the rest of his team died, because he always has crazy, reckless, and ruthless plans, and he doesn't really care about anybody but himself. And he tells Huey, yeah, he is your leader, but if you get in his way of his leadership, he's ultimately going to get you killed in the end. And I would give the writers credit and say this is a good way to foreshadow how both of their character arcs will wrap up in the final episode of this season, but they're not going to go that route because the rest of the season hasn't been really written that good in my opinion. And while Huey's taking his information in, he also knows that deep down Butcher cares deeply for Huey, and that although Butcher is a crazy person, he is trying to be a better person, or he's trying to be a changed man, and he has changed a lot since his introduction in season 1. And the scene again shows how good this mind person is with their powers, as Butcher explains he won't tell them anything about their plans at their hideout, and he doesn't need Butcher to tell them all their plans because he already read their thoughts and he knows everything that's going on behind the scenes, such as Sister Sage being at their hideout now and Kimiko trying to get the same power as Soldier Boy. And the only reason they're able to escape this situation is because Huey comes up with the idea to distract the mind person with their own past and within Huey's thoughts because he's read his file. And this will take all the focus off of him manipulating Butcher's mind so that he can escape and get the final blow on this mind person. But yeah, overall I really like that scene because that is again the best display of telepathy or whatever mind powers he's had. And it also serves as a breath of fresh air compared to how all the other soups in the boys universe uses their powers, because the other soups don't really use their powers to their maximum potential because they don't really find themselves in situations where they have to use their powers. They don't really fight against other people of similar strength or ability. They just use their power on regular people all the time without any consequence. Here, this guy happens to have to use his powers on both a normal person and someone with powers now, and he uses it to the best of his ability here. And meanwhile, with Annie and MM side of things for this mission, we get revealed what O-Father's plan was, and he's just trying to again further push the agenda of Homelander becoming the world's #1 god. And he does this by having a test screening for a few special VIP guests, And they show the guest this ridiculous video of Jesus bestowing his crown upon Homelander, making him the new Jesus of the world. And they also have it set up to where there's 2 more mind people, like the person that Huey and Butcher dealt with. And the reason that they're there is to see who really supports Homelander truly and who doesn't. If you do, you're free to go and you can live, and if you don't, then you have to be trapped in that room while they kill you. And of course, after the video, there's a majority of that room that don't believe in what Homelander is trying to sell them while he's trying to become their god, forcing Father to have to leave them in that room to die. Now, right before this, he has a conversation on the phone with Homelander, and you could just tell that Father doesn't want to kill these people. And I think it's a lot based off of what he had a conversation about with Annie in last week's episode, of how he's straying away from his ideals and how he's seeking forgiveness from Homelander because he's the higher power in the situation, instead of seeking forgiveness from the people he's about to wrong by leaving them in this room. So yeah, you could just tell he really doesn't want to do it. He really wants to use his powers or his pastor skills to persuade them to be on Homelander's side, but Homelander just doesn't care anymore. Just like the writers of this season, he's trying to rush things so everything can wrap up in the finale. And the people who are killing those special guests who don't believe in Homelander is that cat girl from the Teenage Knicks and the dog guy that Andy had a fight with in Gen V Season 2, Episode 1. Now, something big happens here. It's the biggest thing that's ever happened in this entire series. Annie finally wins her fight against someone else with Compound V. I couldn't believe it the first time I saw it either. I had to rewind it and watch it again because I was just so shocked at what I saw. Because she didn't get punched in the face right away. She actually held her own. And she actually managed to get the final blow on the guy while using her power too. So it was just amazing to see. Now, if only she had done this before talking crap on Marie and Jordan, then it would have been slightly more valid. But I still see her as the Renji of this universe, because even Renji from Bleach has 1 win under his belt at least, or at least 2. And here, Annie only has 1. So, meanwhile, on Homelander's end of things, right before his phone call with Father, he's with Soldier Boy in this one scene, and he's showing off basically all of his projects and upcoming deals he has now that he has immortality, and now that he's closer to achieving godhood. And this really reminds you of a kid showing their father or mother a science fair project or an art project that they did in school, and they just really want your approval. They really want to hear, oh, that's good, I'm proud of you. But here, Soldier Boy isn't messing with this. He's actually pretty uncomfortable by all of this. And he basically tells Homelander that, yeah, he's gonna go away for a long time, or, permanently. And that he only gave Homelander the V1 because of his love for Clara, which is total BS, because that's just another setup that Amazon is trying to do for the Vault Rising show, which has been causing a lot of retcons. And this is also making Soldier Boy's character not great anymore. I've never seen a character ever who can carry an entire season and still manage to piss all the fans off at the same time, because of how much he flip-flops in between loving and hating Homelander. First it's, oh, I hate you, Homelander, because I don't think you deserve immortality because you're a weirdo and having you would be bad. Then you go from that to, oh, I love Clara, who I've never mentioned before until now, so that's why I'm giving you immortality. And now you're going back to, I hate you and I need to get away from you. It just makes no sense. It just makes this character inconsistent and really jarring for the audience. And during this conversation, Soldier Boy also tells Homelander that he doesn't deserve to be God just because he saw an illusion of Madeline Stillwell, because Soldier Boy thinks he's accomplished much more during his time as a hero than Homelander did, and that would make him a better God than Homelander. And we just have a bad habit in this show or in this universe of saying outlandish things to hurt the feelings of a mentally unstable superpowered being, and just completely turning our backs against them with no guard up whatsoever or spatial awareness. And then when that person gets you in the chokehold from behind, we just don't use our powers or any combat experience to get out of that situation. That's exactly what happens here. Soldier Boy says all of that to Homelander. He turns around as if Homelander isn't mentally unstable, and Homelander gets Soulja Boy in a chokehold. Now, he doesn't try to elbow Homelander off of him or flip him over, or he doesn't even try to use his nuclear blast to try to get rid of the Compound V and the V1 serum. He just takes the chokehold like a good soldier. Now, if I had $500,000 for every time this has happened in the show, I'd be a millionaire, because not only has it happened twice, but it's happened in back-to-back episodes. Why aren't these people using their powers to get out of these situations? And that goes back to the idea of what I said earlier in this video when I was giving the compliments to that telepath person, where a lot of these heroes in this show don't use their powers to their full advantage, or they never practice using their power, because once they fight someone with similar strength to them, they don't know what to do, they fold in the end. But when it comes to fighting humans, they go all out, and now they could get themselves out of any situation. But if it's another superpowered person like them, they just don't know what to do for some reason. And because Soulja Boy has zero spatial awareness in the realm of a mentally unstable superpowered being, he's now back on thin ice. And something else that this scene in particular has opened my eye to is that whenever the writers don't know what to do with a certain character, they kind of send them off in the most dumbest ways. For example, in last week's episode, they didn't know what to do with Black Noir's character, so they had somebody chokehold him from behind and stab him, even though Black Noir is bulletproof and can fly. Here's the same thing. They don't know what to do with Soulja Boy because they already got all the action scenes they wanted out of him. They already used him to set up the Vault Rising prequel series, and they also used him to get a good supernatural reunion for a few episodes of the season. So now the only way to write him off the show for the rest of the season is to have Homelander choke him from behind. And if this happens to another character in the next episode, I wouldn't be surprised, because that character is most likely a character who the writers don't know what to do anything for. Therefore, they have to choke them from behind to get them out of the show. And meanwhile, we have Frenchie back at home base, where he's pumping uranium inside of Kimiko so that she can replicate Soulja Boy's power of being able to take away Compound V and possibly V1 out of Homelander, because Soulja Boy is now on ice. But Frenchie just can't quite get the calculations right. He needs help. He needs Sister Sage. But Sister Sage here in this episode is in complete ruin, as her plan failed in the last episode. So, you know, like I said in the previous video, she didn't calculate that emotion. That's what made her mess her plan up overall, despite Ashley's warning. And she's going through it with her own emotions that she can't fully understand or calculate for herself. And this results in her repeatedly lobotomizing herself and, you know, forcing herself to watch Love Island. And Frenchie goes in there and gives her pep talk about how love can be a beautiful thing, how love is always strong in the end. Now, I will admit, it's kind of nice seeing Sage in this ruined state because it humbles her as a character. She's usually cocky and thinks she's better than everybody in the room. But not only does this show her that there's better people out there, but this also humanizes her in a way. So now maybe she could use her powers more effectively, and instead of just doing all logic for her calculated plans, she could also calculate for someone's human emotions, whether they're a superhero or not. I also like that Frenchie is the one to give her this pep talk because his name is Frenchie, he's French. French is equivalated with Paris, the city of love, and love is what Sage is struggling to understand right now, so it all pretty goes well together with the theme. And Sage changes her mind as she finally agrees to help Frenchie with helping Kimiko get more powers. And with Sage's help, the experiment seems to go well. Kimiko might actually have the ability that Soulja Boy had, which is to get rid of any superhero power along with the V1 serum. But right when they get done, Homelander arrives, and the only reason he found their location is because of the guy who could read people's minds from earlier in the episode, read Butch's mind and reported back to O-Father, who reported back to Homelander their location. And this is one of the really good segments of the episode because it really shows how scary Homelander can be, especially when it's just Homelander against regular people. Now, I know Sage and Kimiko aren't regular people, but I'm talking about Frenchie specifically here. And during the scene, you could tell that Homelander is just locked in. He's using his X-ray vision to try to find anybody that may possibly be there. And there's this one spot he can't see through because he can't see through Zing. And he's thinking, okay, they're definitely hiding in there because this is the only place I can't see. And this goes back to the idea of what I said in previous videos, that Homelander is slowly but surely getting his mental state back together. Ever since Sage betrayed him, that kind of forced him to lock in himself. But before he could check that spot he can't see with his x-ray vision, Frenchie taps the wall silently and Homelander super speeds right to him. And they have basically a stare down or a very intense moment with each other. And this just reminds me as a callback to season 1 where he first meets Frenchie while Frenchie's in that truck, and the truck is also made of zinc, which Homelander can't see through again. So this here was just really a full circle moment for Frenchie's story. And Frenchie knows that he's not going to make it out alive, so he decides to sacrifice himself and try to use uranium on Homelander because Kimiko is still hiding as she's still recovering from their last experiment. And the boys arrive just in time to see their teammate Frenchie now become French fries. Now the only complaint I have about Frenchie's final scene is that they basically censored it here. When we get the shot of the rest of the boys coming back to their base, we see a big blood trail and we're questioning whether it's Homelander or Frenchie's, but it turns out to be Frenchie's as he's crawling in the pile of his own blood. And we don't see exactly how he got into the state, but it is implied with their earlier conversation right before he used the uranium on Homelander, as he tells Homelander that he could rip his testicles off, he's not scared, and that he doesn't care. And my thing is, out of everything we've ever seen in the show, this is like one of the most disgusting shows I've ever watched, especially when you're eating something. We've had people use their powers to clone themselves and create a human centipede. We've had people who eat dirt and the dirt comes out of their butt. The butt is uncensored, by the way. Or we have people shrink down to the size of an atom to go inside someone's private parts, and we see the inside of that person's private part in full detail. But for some reason, they decided to censor Frenchie's death and make it an off-screen thing, or make the cause of Frenchie's death off-screen. They really should have just showed Homelander doing that to Frenchie, because any other time Homelander kills somebody, they show what happens in full detail. As for the rest of the side stuff in this episode, it just focuses on the Deep as he's lost. He doesn't really know what to do with himself. Instead of reaching his peak like the Punisher did in his recent special, the Deep is deeper in his own problems, because Homelander decided after becoming immortal, the 7 is no longer needed, as they haven't even had 7 members in that team since season 1. But outside of the 7, the Deep doesn't have anything else, as he's not really a good person, and he has a pretty bad reputation with most people due to his attempt with Annie in the very first episode. And has gotten to the point where even all of the fish of the sea hates him despite being the king of the sea because of the whole pipe oil burst situation caused by Black Noir. And the fish are still blaming him for the pipe burst for some reason. And it kind of makes me think that maybe Black Noir was originally planned to have some kind of shape-shifting power, and he used the Deep's face to burst the pipe. That might be the only possible reason why they're blaming the Deep and not Black Noir. So that kind of also makes me feel like this episode wasn't really meant to be the second to last episode, as if they wanted the season to last a little longer than 8 episodes. But they couldn't have it that way, so they just had to hurry up and rush this here. And a few moments later, after the shark threatens to kill him if he ever goes back into the water, another man is basically drowning in the water, and the Deep has a chance to redeem himself after everything he's been through. But he's too scared of the previous shark's threat, so he basically runs away like a coward, right in front of the public eye. Now to me, I saw this scene as the writers running away from the problem of them writing themselves in the corner with certain characters that they were too ambitious to write these ridiculous side plots for, but they realized that they didn't know how to close these plot lines, so they're basically just running away. Hence why they killed Black Noir and Soulja Boy the way they did, and hence why they just made the Deep run away. The Deep is a representation of the writers and directors themselves running away from their bad writing. Literally, you could have cut every scene out with the Deep and this episode would not have changed at all. And I wouldn't be surprised if the Deep in the next episode gets choked from behind, kind of how like Soulja Boy and Black Noir did, because that's what you do with a character in The Boys when you don't know how to write for them anymore. You just choke them out. Overall, I give season 5 episode 7 of The Boys a 3 out of 10. I know that's a lot lower than episode 5, which was absolute filler, but having this be the second to last episode ever, it doesn't fit, especially with all the narrative things that happen here. Had this episode been earlier this season, or maybe even last season a little bit, it would have been a 10 out of 10 or 8 out of 10. But the fact that this is the second to last episode, episode 7 out of 8, and only 3 things happen, but the plot still fails to move along, even though it attempted to move along, is just bad. And going into this final episode, we have 1 episode left, and there's still so many things to wrap up with this series. Homelander still hasn't fully become the god he wants to be. We still haven't gotten anything leading up to a scorched earth like we've been getting teased for the past 2 seasons. We still need to see a fight between Butcher and Homelander, which is the reason why we're all here in the first place. Also, the way they're going about things right now makes all those advertisement posters before the season came out of Homelander looking at a scorched earth from outer space and Butcher standing outside the White House surrounded by a bunch of soups, or Butcher standing outside of the vault tower that's collapsed, makes it look like false advertisement because we've gotten no closer to any of those things happening. So yeah, basically this episode has me scared for what's to come next week in the series finale, because I feel like things might have to be rushed because we have to wrap up so many things in such little time. Other than that, that's going to be about it for this review of season 5 episode 7 of The Boys. If you've seen the episode already, let me know what you think in the comment section down below, and like always, be sure to hit that like and subscribe button along with the notification bell so you can see when I make more videos. And until then, I'll see you guys later.